Welcome to HD Nation, your guide to the best in HD content and the best in home theater gear, no matter what your budget is. I'm Patrick Norton.
Hey, and I'm Robert Heron.
A lot of great stuff coming up in today's show, including the heartbreak of yellow greens. Or is that greenish yellows?
Greenish yellows.
Greenish yellows.
And how to avoid them.
It's something I want to say, though. We don't really get political here, but there's been a lot of interesting stuff. We are obviously big fans of Netflix. Robert and I have been paying for our account for years. If you want to support the show, netflix.com/HDNation. House of Cards Season 2, freaking amazing, and I'm only 2 episodes into it. But getting back to what we're talking about here is this statement by FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler on the FCC's open internet rules, which basically is an acknowledgement that they got their asses kicked in court and they have to figure out a better way to enforce net neutrality, or Netflix is going to look fuzzy because your cable provider might slow it down because they want you to actually pay for cable TV. Except, of course, for Comcast, and if they spend $45.2 billion and get Time Warner, because Comcast has agreed, at least until 2018, to honor net neutrality, which basically means not going, hey, Robert, you want your bits to get through to your customers? Slide me a little cash.
I would like that.
A little something, something.
I would.
Yeah, well, it's large, it's complicated. Net neutrality isn't simple, but we are big fans of net neutrality because we want our video. We think we're paying to get our video. We don't want to pay more for our services to get the video because we're already paying you, Comcast, a lot of money to get your service, or whoever else you might be using for internet. Good write-ups on GigaOM. Jeff John Roberts, Wheeler unveils new proposed rules for network neutrality. We'll try to stop improper blocking. NPR, how the big cable deal could actually boost open internet rules, at least temporarily. And my personal favorite, like screaming from the hilltop in the Los Angeles Times, net neutrality is dead, bow to Comcast and Verizon, your overlords. And I'm just going to stop right there, and we're going to talk about a lovely little tweet from @Superman50,000, who says, @Robert Heron, I have a question on my TV. Yellows look green. Yellow. What can I do to fix this?
I am actually, of all the colors I look at on TVs, I'm particularly sensitive to accurate yellows. A bit too much green, and that's really the sign of probably an improper setup. I always talk about step 1 is reset that TV, particularly if you don't want to dig into resetting the entire TV, at least reset the picture setups to their defaults. Next, try out that movie cinema picture preset and see if that helps. Avoid those oddball custom picture presets you'll find on a lot of new TVs nowadays. Things like Gulf, or let's enhance the lawn mode, or vivid or dynamic. Stick with that cinema or movie preset, and then turn your brightness up for the backlight setting, up or down, and then see if that gets your yellow looking normal again. Finally, check out the color tint setup on your TV, either using the THX test patterns or the WOW disc I mentioned from Disney, also Spears and Munsell. Buying one of these test discs is a great way to also get a hold of the tool you will need, which is a blue filter. This allows you to look at the appropriate test pattern for setting up color or tint, and it allows you to make the proper adjustment. You need a colored piece of filter like this really to do it right. So these discs do come with that. You can also order them off of the THX website, just the glasses alone, I think, for a couple bucks. So if you already have one of these discs and you don't have the blue filter, there's a way around that. Finally, the tint in particular should be the problem with manipulating, going between, say, adding a little more green or a little more red to your yellows. Finally, just straight up calibration of the color management system. It is mostly a minefield to try to do that without the proper equipment and know-how, so I'm not going to really tell you to do that unless you know what you're doing. However, that would be the final way to go in and verify that you've done everything else. I'm still getting odd-looking yellows. I really need to have somebody come in and calibrate the TV at that point to measure what yellow's doing and then specifically tweak it to where it should be. And that's how you get around that. But start with resetting those settings. Check out your picture presets to make sure it's the same way across the board. Grab yourself a test disc if you don't already have it, just to get that blue filter. And check your tint setup in particular with that. On most TVs, though, tint settings typically don't need to be changed. So that makes me go back and say maybe somebody was playing around with the TV and just tweaked the tint setting one way or the other to adjust the color. So, stuff to try.
Stuff to try. You know what else you should be trying? Well, after you got your TV looking right, Netflix. They got thousands of titles to choose from that instantly stream to your set-top boxes, game consoles, or maybe your app-enabled HDTV. Netflix.com/HDNation for a free trial, and you'll help support this show. Jeff wrote in, he's looking for help. archiving his Blu-rays. He says, hey guys, I'm thinking about putting together a home theater PC to play Blu-ray ISOs. I remember from a previous show, one of you talking about software that displays a nice interface for browsing your library and would possibly mount the image automatically and begin playback. I can't remember what episode that was or what it was called. Also, my other concerns are making sure I can output a true 24p signal with the HD lossless audio tracks just like a standalone Blu-ray would. Any experience with this? Thanks a lot, guys. I look forward to your show every week. Jeff. Well, thank you, Jeff. You have done this very thing better than anybody I've seen.
Specifically, the software I'm using that provides that beautiful, nice interface is something called MyMovies, and I use this specifically because I'm using a Windows-based setup for my media center. Now, there are other software packages out there for even the Windows platform that will give you a similar interface. I'm with Windows right now because it's also part of my tuner setup as well. Anyway, mymovies.dk. It's free to try. If you spend a little money or you provide some information for them, you can unlock certain features of the program too that make automating your collection a heck of a lot easier. But the software that makes archiving and playing my Blu-ray archives possible comes from the good folks over at SlySoft. And they have a variety of programs that I use. Two in particular I'm going to highlight, AnyDVD HD. This is the master program, a favorite tool that not only makes it easy to archive my discs that I own, also it's available as a 21-day free trial. You don't have to pay to own it. And then you can subscribe for as many years and updates as you want. If you want to buy this software for a lifetime subscription, though, it's going to set you back about $165, plus any discounts. There happens to be a 20% discount right now. Now, when I have AnyDVD HD running in the background, it does a few things. One, if I'm using a display that for whatever reason it doesn't support HDCP, maybe my older monitor on my computer, it'll bypass that. Also, it'll make 3D movies play back on a 2D player if you need that function for some reason. But most importantly, it'll decrypt the disk contents for use with other applications. One of the big ones you're going to run into playing back these archive contents is something called Synovia. This great piece of copy protection actually encodes into the audio stream with a little fingerprint that makes it basically detectable for most popular PC software players. So if you've got your archive collection and you're streaming it to your home theater PC and you try to play it back on a standard player or even something like a PlayStation 3 or any other commercial player, after a few minutes you're going to get a pop-up message saying, hey, you know what, this is a copy protected piece of material, blah, 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 blah. AnyDVD HD is a great way to get around that. Now, there's also another aspect of their software called Virtual Clone Drive from SlySoft. That's the software I use to create the virtual optical drive program. This is actually free, and essentially it just creates another drive letter that my movie software will then load up the Blu-ray ISO into the virtual drive. And at that point, it is really just like having the disc in the drive. I get full 24p playback with my favorite software. I'm getting full lossless audio support that goes right into my home theater receiver. It works like a charm, and it is a do-it-yourself type scenario. If this is all too much, there are companies like Kaleidoscape that create full systems that do this very thing for a significant investment.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. And in the Kaleidoscape's case, you have to have the Blu-ray in the player on the Kaleidoscape system, despite the fact that Kaleidoscape has essentially ripped everything and started on their server. How many terabytes of Blu-rays? I mean, how many terabytes are you using to store your Blu-rays?
I have an 11 or 12 terabyte NAS box set up just for movies and my DVD and Blu-ray backup. So that gives me a lot of extra headspace too. But you know, you are moving around gigs of data when you're talking about full disk backups of this kind of content. So keep that in mind.
It's not cheap, but the SlySoft AnyDVD just makes so many things so much easier.
The lifetime subscription, especially if you look at it over a few years, it isn't that much. But yeah, $165 for a lifetime subscription might seem like a bit, but catch them on their sales too. I think, actually, last time I checked this, they're doing a 20% discount until March. So
that's a pretty good deal.
You can get a nice discount right now. Now, I have to say that a home theater PC can basically do anything you want. For me personally, it acts as my cable TV or my over-the-air DVR. It manages that massive multimedia collection. Or I could be, say, installing Steam on my favorite box.
Yes!
I just wanted to go over basically what some of the home theater uses are, and to talk about, well, for the last 5 years, I've been running this very box in my living room. That's a custom-built home theater PC. It runs 24/7. And when I talk about home theater PCs, one of the most important things for me personally is energy efficiency and silence, because this box is running all the time and it is right in my living room near the display devices. Now, when you're thinking about building a home theater PC, other important criteria to consider would be storage. Basically, an optical disk drive. You might not actually need that. If you have an external drive you can just plug in once in a while that you do need an optical drive, then you probably wouldn't need one built in. Now, for main storage, I typically go with something like a solid state drive plus a hard disk drive, so I have the speed for boot and applications along with the hard disk drive for lots and lots of storage for my movie collections or recording TV shows. On my current home theater PC, I've got a 2 terabyte drive for recording all my HD programs that I'm recording off air. CPU-wise, you really don't need a heck of a lot. An i3 would be plenty, and as far as the graphics go built in, stick with Intel's 4400 graphics on that i3 part. Or if you really wanted to step it up, you could go with like a low power, maybe an AMD card or something like that, if you were into more of the 1080p gaming side of it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's gaming, it's a completely different build than if it's simply a home theater PC. If you're playing Blu-rays, if you're playing video, if you're streaming, if you are playing your video collection, if you're using it to serve your audio collection through all the other devices in your house, no matter what they are, whether it's your Sonos boxes or some other streaming device, Core i3 more than enough. If you're building a gaming box, then build a gaming box. And that's a whole nother build and a much larger price tag.
Totally. And going back to the efficiency side of things again, the motherboard, the core component you're going to have in this computer that you're putting together, size can be a lot smaller than you might realize. There's a format called micro ATX that is smaller than your standard ATX full-size motherboard, but mini ITX. That's the part where I really get smiling. That computer I showed you that I'm running, it's running one of these mini ITX motherboards, so cool. 7.5 inches on each side. Now you only have the one slot right there for installing a full-size graphics card or a PCI Express tuner. However, there are other companies that make these too. ASRock has another high-quality selection of boards to choose from. Drop your standard CPU in there, but again, keep in mind that this is strictly 7.5 inches on each side. And then it comes down to that case. Now, I showed you that one case I'm using that I like so much, a Thermaltake design from their Luxa 2 collection. This is the smallest one they make, the LM100. I went and looked up some of their new products, actually, and here's the Luxa 2 page right now with some of their current designs and upcoming designs. These are much larger. These are sized cases that will hold up to a micro ATX size motherboard or mini ITX too if you want to put it in there. But you have some pretty cool looking options. A little larger footprint again, but things like front panel controls, touch or not touch based panels up front. And again, the case is really more of a personal choice in terms of what you want it to look like when it's sitting there, if you're even going to be able to see it, depending on where you put it in the room. In terms of pricing for cases like these, my LM100 started at about $275. These cases will probably be up in the $300, $400 range. They're not cheap, but they do come with the power supplies built in. And they're made of brushed aluminum. So right. I've had this for years. It looks brand new still. It's not plastic.
If you keep all your gear in a closet, though, you can spend $50 on a case and nobody will be the wiser.
Without a doubt. When it comes to your tuner options, you're talking over-the-air or cable TV. My favorite companies there would be Silicon Dust and Seaton. They are the masters. And as far as software goes, it's everything from your, keep this in mind, the OS, media management, your Blu-ray playback. If you're going to think about remote access, getting that set up, you can spend a lot of money just on software for this. Nowadays, your average Blu-ray player software programs are about $75 to $100. Right. I spent another $100 just for MyMovies to unlock everything, so I'd never have to be bothered with it again. But again, you can start this as cheap as you want. And it really, if you don't need Blu-ray playback, you don't need a Blu-ray player software package in order to make that function. If you're not dealing with a cable setup for TV, you can cut costs again. There are lots of ways of doing it, but keep in mind, you can either repurpose the current system you have, go on the cheap side, but there are also some really great options out there for creating a system that looks good in the rack or in your home theater setup too. So,
oh my goodness.
Get your home theater PC on!
I just got my gaming PC rebuild. It's 110 inches of gaming.
Nice.
It's just so awesome. Dread242 tweets, at Patrick Norton, not ready to put an HD antenna on the roof or in the attic. Can I use 3 WallTennas with a 3-way splitter pointed in different directions? I gotta say, Randy, I would start with one WallTenna. They look flimsy, right? Because you look at these things, it's like a piece of plastic with some copper tape inside of it. I mean,
I use one of these at home, and it works really well. That is a pretty stiff piece of plastic, but yeah, it is.
But when you're looking at it, you're like, this is ridiculous. Start with one. They do it, actually, they do a pretty good job sucking down the signal. Head over to antennaweb.org. So we've shown this, we'll show it again. So let's go into, click here to start.
Yep.
And it's really easy. Basically, all of the television comes pretty much from one or two directions here in the Bay Area, because like we're right next to a big city. You want to see where the broadcast towers are, and I'm just going to submit this and ignore this just for fun. But the idea, if all the HD over-the-air is coming from that big city over there, align the antenna in that direction. Try putting it in the attic if you can, and running the cable down. It's saying that you're not really ready to install an antenna in the attic, or to a silicon dust receiver that sends it over your home network. It would be a really cool way to do it. If that doesn't work, and I'm suspecting, based on your question, that you're in the middle of 2 or 3 broadcast senders, or you're really far away from them, you might want to try, just get your multi-antenna mayhem on, but I would start with a single antenna first. And actually, I should go back. So
I had no idea you could do multiple antennas in any way.
Well, it's funny,
form, but what do I know?
Yeah, well, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so when you're looking at this, right, so this is approximately where my house is. I'm not going to get this stuff because there's a big giant hill in between them. I might get some of this stuff from down towards San Jose. It's kind of funny to kind of look at what's going on here. Most of it, though, is coming from the big old hill in the middle of San Francisco or south in Daly City. So maybe things are a little crazier than I thought they were, but most of what I'm going to be viewing would basically be coming from this direct line here. Really good information also on what kind of antenna you're actually going to need to get the signal in. If you are going to play around with multiple antennas, though, and again, start with a single WallTenna, you're going to be looking for something like this, a combiner, a channel master or a joined antenna, not a splitter. The combiner, the idea is that the combiner is going to block interference between the two antennas. A lot of folks online argue that there is no interference with digital, and you won't see it. There's no ghosting issues with digital. There's other issues. But these are pretty cheap. Try one and see how it goes. But definitely, experiment. You know what I mean? Like, you may think you want to hold the antenna this way, but sometimes turning it 90 degrees, or just play around with it until you get the best signal, and then start spending more money for more antennas.
That's what I would say too. And if you have access to the roof and you can put a directional or a motorized antenna.
It's not everybody. Not everybody's like you. You always want. He's first thing. I'll go on the roof.
I'm using a WallTenna, but I didn't think to use multiple.
You're also like 12 stories in the air.
I'm like 50 feet in the air.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
The more height you give to an antenna, the more likely you are to get signal. That's a whole nother conversation.
I'm lucky.
That's it for this episode of HD Nation. You are. Please subscribe at revision3.com/HDNation or youtube.com/HDNation.
That is right. Hey, and please email us your comments, your questions, or suggestions.
HDNation@revision3.com.
Do it, or post them right down below. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.